Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to today's webinar, on Emerging Stronger, How Sustainability Leads to Profitability. As we know, the travel and tourism industry looks to emerge stronger from the pandemic, but the industry must re-evolve, rebuild, and reprioritize in order to work towards sustainable and responsible recovery, in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 2030. The slowdown of the pandemic has provided the industry an opportunity to relook into their sustainability efforts, as research has shown that focusing on sustainability is not only a responsible practice, but can lead to greater profitability. Today's speakers will be sharing their insights and relevant case studies on how sustainability can lead to profitability. But before we get to today's speakers, let me just first introduce myself. My name is Pruangkarn. I am the Director of Communications and External Affairs at the Pacific Asia Travel Association, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Now, before we get to our speakers, I do have a couple quick notes regarding the use of Zoom. As many of you should already know, we've been doing Zoom for maybe over a year now. There are two functions at the bottom of your screen, a chat function and a Q&A. So please go ahead and use the chat function to engage with other participants. Say hello, where you're from, what you do, any comments you have about any insights you want to add to some of the presentations you see. However, please do keep the conversations cordial and be courteous in the chat function. However, if you have any questions for our speakers, please use the Q&A function. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the three presentations. So feel free to submit the questions anytime during the three presentations. We'll get to them at the end, so please do submit them there. Do not submit any questions into the chat function. It's a bit difficult for me to sort of monitor both the chat and the Q&A. So please do submit your questions in the Q&A function as shown on your screen. So without further ado, before we get to our first speakers, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce the chair of PADA to give his opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Soonwha Wong. Soonwha, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Greetings, everyone, and a warm welcome. Now, sustainability is a big word, and it can mean different things to different people. An authoritative reference is the UNWTO Sustainable Development Goals, or SDG 2030. PATA is a big advocate and promoter of sustainability, and we encourage all our members and all industry stakeholders to collectively rebuild a more sustainable, a more resilient, and a more responsible industry in our tourism recovery efforts. Now, most of us would agree that sustainability is the right thing to do, but we are in a crisis. So in a crisis, bread and butter issues must come first. Some would say that sustainability is a nice to have and not a must have. It is understandable, but is there no other way to promote sustainability? Today, we have got three speakers who will show us how sustainability can in fact bring us more profits. I'm sure there are businesses out there who can also attest to this. Let us now move forward and promote sustainability in a positive way. Have a positive mantra: profitability in sustainability. Thank you, Diana from HSBC, Gabriel from GUAVA Amenities, and Sebastien from Accor Asia Pacific for being with us today to share your thoughts and valuable insights. Enjoy your webinar.
Thank you very much, Soonwha, for those words. And so let me just get back to share my screen. So Soonwha has already just introduced our three speakers for today. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker. She will be talking about reimagining sustainability, building a sustainable future in precarious times, how HSBC supports the transition to net zero. She is the Director of Sustainable Finance at HSBC Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Diana Tang. Diana, over to you.
Thank you, Paul, for the kind introduction. Let me share my screen very quickly.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Thanks for the invitation actually from the Pacific Asia Travel Association. My name is Diana Tang. I work in HSBC in Singapore. Obviously very delighted to be here today to actually speak about two of my great passions, which is actually travel and sustainability. So in the next 15 minutes, I've put together a few slides. I think the intention is not to be reading out from the slides. I think the intention is also to have some engagement at the end of the webinar with all of you. In the next couple of minutes, I will be talking about three key areas. The first would be to share some highlights on sustainability from one of HSBC's annual comprehensive navigator surveys. We talked to clients across more than 39 countries and territories, speaking to more than 10,000 key decision makers to ask them about the state of play. What are they most concerned about, and where do they think business is heading in the coming year? In the second part of my presentation, I will talk a little bit about how do you actually start on your sustainability journey? What are some of the key areas of consideration for you to think about, and why is this going to be good for you and profitable for you in the medium to long term? The last part will cover how HSBC supports the transition to net zero. I will also share some examples about green projects, application of green loans, and some sustainability-linked loan applications to some of the companies and organizations within the travel, tourism, and hospitality sector. Okay, so moving on to the slides, I think when we think about the situation in the past year, it has obviously brought its challenges to various sectors. Not all the impact is equal, as we are all aware. Annually, HSBC conducts a navigator survey. The results of those are published publicly on our website. One of the key trends that we saw from the survey last year, which was done around mid of September to early October in 2020, which was when we were right in the depths of the pandemic. Vaccinations were not really started yet. And from there, it was still quite an interesting outcome. We saw that 86% of businesses surveyed expected their sales to grow over the next year from a greater focus on sustainability. For the businesses who expected up to 5% growth, over 41% of them did expect sales to actually grow, driven by an increased focus on sustainability. When we think about sustainability leading to profitability, in the past, we speak a lot about economic profitability, but increasingly, companies in the market are expecting the benefits of sustainability to go beyond shareholder returns. It goes beyond just the bottom line. When we look at the results survey last year, over 37% felt that it would actually lead to increase employee well-being. Over 32% felt that it would lead to enhanced corporate reputations, and over 30% saw that it would attract increased amounts of investment. So when we think about employee well-being, that's actually been a really big factor among the clients that I speak to. Attrition is an issue that companies face. It is quite well known that it will cost companies more to actually hire, retrain new joiners compared to retaining existing staff. So that's been one of the interesting areas of focus for corporates when they come to think about sustainability versus cost savings that they could actually drive from caring about employees' well-being and not just looking at environmental factors. So going on to the next slide, when we think about some of the targets companies are setting, what we were keen to understand was, how many of companies we speak to are actually setting sustainability targets. A lot of companies do say that they have a sustainability focus. They may speak about it, but in reality, not all companies have already established targets. But one of the really positive points from the survey was that 3 in 4 companies have now set targets. Increasingly, we are seeing that there are a few key areas of change. External pressures are actually quite broad-based. The pressure is coming from consumers, especially for sectors which are consumer-facing, such as tourism, food and beverage, textile and garments, from the government as well through regulatory requirements and through their supply chain partners. Increasingly, businesses are seeing how these drivers of change could actually create growth opportunities, and they are also looking to governments for support. So more than 2 in 5 firms actually report that government incentives would support their sustainability efforts. Going on to the second point here, when we think about the focus areas, more than 78% of firms have actually set environmental targets, and 77% have actually set social targets. So when we think about the key kind of targets that they have established, we actually ask them, what areas have you set targets in? 82% had targets on energy usage. 80% had targets on recycling. And the third point, which is of interest to everyone as well, is that 80% actually set targets for diversity at all levels. So that brings me to my point where sometimes it is not just about setting climate-linked targets or environmental-linked targets, but it's also linked to social and governance criteria as well. There are also targets on impacts on local communities. About 79% set targets on carbon footprint. And interestingly, for your sector, 72% also set targets on employee travel and air miles. So that's actually quite a high figure compared to maybe what we might think anecdotally without doing a survey like that. In terms of trends, I think a lot of them are really looking into annual targets. Almost 27% are already setting a target for 2025. So in a situation like this, when we think about winning strategies, the overwhelming sort of consensus we got from the results of a few surveys show that when a company identifies itself as thriving, they actually see that you have greatest opportunities from improving sustainability performance. In our current situation now, with overall sort of funding costs at general historical lows, it creates one of the greatest opportunities for financial institutions and investors to actually support the transition to a more sustainable future. So typically when I speak to clients, they like to mention, we ask them, what are your key challenges? When you think about sustainability, it tends to be 3 key factors. Cost is typically one of the key pain points. The second one would be complexity. It might be difficult. It might not be so clear of how firms can actually be sustainable. And the third is the competing priorities that the firms may have. As we saw last year in a COVID situation, a lot of firms were actually really focused on surviving through the cycles, looking at how they could remain resilient. So the 3 C's, as what I call it, is common barriers that companies face. So sustainable financing solutions is actually a key enabler to unlock these opportunities. And when we think about future business strategy, it is really very clear when we look at the survey results that many companies already view sustainability as a key component of future business strategy. In July last year, during the peak of the pandemic, HSBC did a survey on resilience, covering more than 2,600 businesses across 14 countries on how the COVID crisis affected them. And more than 9 out of 10 actually mentioned, and they agreed that the need to actually reassess and review their operations would allow them to rebuild their businesses on firmer environmental foundations. So the key theme there is really, we've seen a lot of businesses actually evolve the way they operate, the way they deal with consumers, the way they deal with their suppliers in response to the disruption that happened last year. And we do believe that this trend is just going to continue and grow. So In the next section here, I will talk about where to start. I mean, I will give the caveat that obviously, I am a banker. I am not a consultant in this space. What I'm sharing here is typically some of the discussion points that we have with customers to say, look, the field is complex. I raised the common barriers to sustainability. One was cost, one was complexity, one was competing priorities. So when it came to where you start, we try to sort of distill and simplify some of the concepts for your consideration here. I think one of the important things would be to first actually understand your own environmental risks. For example, if you are a hotel or resort operator, you would need to understand is your site actually susceptible to rising sea levels? If yes, what are your action plans? Are you doing any climate adaptation, adopting any sort of climate adaptation technology to actually mitigate that change? Are you thinking ahead to say, in 3 years' time, what is going to happen? If you don't actually think about it right now, you might end up with what we call a stranded asset, basically an asset that would need to be abandoned when the impacts of this comes in. It might not even be just climate related. It could also be energy related. If your business is susceptible to carbon taxes, and if you operate in a country where some of these taxes may be imposed or be increased over the next couple of years, is your business model set up to actually manage this risk? Are your financings and your investor engagement established to deal with this? One of the ways you could sort of make a start could also be looking into what the best practices are in your industry. And that's where I think platforms like PATA has been very, very helpful in actually providing this opportunity for the sharing of best practices, understanding what is happening within the broader markets, understanding some of what your peers and the leading players are doing in the field of sustainability. When we think about industry targets, the one thing to think about is also if there are any sort of industry strategies that you would need to consider adopting. So for example, if we're looking at the airline industry, a strategy that's currently being developed would be the one on sustainable aviation fuels. Would you need financial support, investor support for you to be able to take on board some of these new technologies? Are you setting ESG targets? If you are, how are you actually starting that process? How long is it going to take you? Is there a timeline? So I think the key thing is really a lot of companies talk about it, but they may not actually embark on setting the timelines. And as we have seen from the earlier survey, so many companies, 3 or 4 surveyed, actually have already set targets. So if you are within the basket of that 1 or 4 who may not have started thinking about it, I think it would be really good to start thinking about setting some timelines to meet this where the industry is actually going. So the last point here would be, the last 2 points would be on government support, on regulatory requirements. It's a bit of I wouldn't say a double-edged sword, but reality is there could be regulatory requirements coming in. For example, in Singapore, in the Singapore Green Building Master Plan, there is a target for at least 80% of buildings by floor area to be green by 2030. So that has actually driven a lot of activity within the sector. If you are intending to build a new building in Singapore, this is something that you will need to consider. What are the costs involved? But at the same time, the government is also providing support. Obviously, the pace of support differs across different countries. We are very mindful that it is not all a one-size-fits-all approach across the world, across each jurisdiction, and even within Asia, the pace of change and support available is very, very different within each of the countries in a region. So that's just something for you to consider. If you could use this almost as a guidance point to think through for all your business operations. When it comes to the how does it actually help my business then? Is it all just talk? And why should I even care? So I think there's a few elements here. I won't go through all of it one by one. The first point, here would be, we keep talking about cost savings when it comes to sustainability. But the positive point is that it's no longer just about cost savings. Going into sustainability, embedding sustainability in your operations now is also leading to income generation ideas. It's about winning new business. You can see how there's a big growth in sustainable travel. Consumers are actually increasingly seeking enhanced experiences that is sustainable for the planet and community. When I go into a hotel now, I walk in, one of the first few things I look at would be, are they sustainable? Are they, where is the water coming from? What is the heating and cooling? Do I see a lot of plastic around? What is the sort of the company's approach towards sustainability? So as speaking from a perspective of a consumer, this is already something that I'm sharing from my personal experience. Okay, and I think just going into the last points, I'll just very quickly, just give me a second, talk about the transition into net zero. When we think about what sustainable finance is, banks are coming together to provide financing for any sort of financial service that integrates ESG criteria into business or investment decisions. So those could come in the form of green loans and bonds. It could come in the form of trade finance. It could come into financing any green projects that you may wish to take that would help you on your sustainable finance journey. And these are just some of the green project criteria for one to think about. As long as you have any projects entering into any of these criteria, you would be able to tap onto green financing that is offered by most financial institutions across the world. So we're always happy to provide more examples about how some of this could be relevant. And I think in the course of the next two presentations, they would be sharing with you some of the practical actions that they are currently already taking and how they facilitate the transition into a more sustainable future. So from HSBC's perspective, we are very, very focused on providing the necessary support. And it is one of our key ambitions to actually help you, partner with you on your journey to a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana. If anybody has any questions for Diana, she'll be back with us at the end of the next two presentations for Q&A. So please do, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A. So let me just get my screen up here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana, and we'll see you in just a little bit later. So we've come to our next presentation, and then we'll be talking about how GUAVA helps hospitality and travel establishments demonstrate sustainability while improving their profitability. And please welcome the director from GUAVA, one of our newest PATA members. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Gabriel Tan. Gabriel, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Do you recognize the name Bill Gates? I'm sure most of you here do. Every morning when I wake up, I kind of feel like a young Bill Gates. Here's what I mean. Bill Gates dropped out of school when he was only 19. At that time, computer was very big, the size of a room, and definitely not to be used at home. And Bill Gates went around to tell everybody that he's going to put a personal computer in every home around the world. And people probably thought he was crazy. Definitely, it is not possible back then, given that situation, for that to happen. Here's what I mean. I'm not saying that I'm going to be as rich as Bill Gates. Neither am I saying that we are going to change the world the same way Bill Gates has. But what I mean is, what we have here is something that can change the world in the area of our business. Here at GUAVA, we provide globally scalable, sustainable solutions. We believe that sustainability is not only for the select few, but it is actually meant for everyone, everywhere. That's why we develop various solutions from luxury to standard needs that are required by global hospitality chains, airlines, and cruise liners. And in our work with them, we actually help our clients around the world to enrich their brand experience and scale their impact in line with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But at the same time, we also help them to reduce costs significantly from their operations. Having spent the last 17 years of my career in the hospitality and travel industry, I've been personally responsible for the development of key relationships with some of the largest names in the industry, where we develop scalable and sustainable solutions around the world to help our clients, whereby we do it with due considerations for critical aspects of their operations. In the course of the work that we do for all our customers and all our clients, I noticed a common misconception about sustainability being commonly associated with higher costs. Of course, it is a challenge, but with the right strategy and with the right mindset, we have actually proven it again and again through so many projects over the years that by being sustainable, we can actually help our clients to reduce their costs and improve their profitability. And in today's context, you can't afford not to be sustainable. So in my session today, I'm going to share with you a couple of problems faced by our industry today, followed by solutions, benefits, case study, and conclusion. First, let's look at the problem. I think we need to look at our problem on a broader perspective, on a bigger scale, but we need to be able to view them on three main themes. First is economic, second is social, and third is environmental. COVID-19 has affected every single sector in the world, and the hospitality and travel is among the hardest hit. So you can look at the first issue will be economic. So at the top of everybody's mind today will be this huge question mark about uncertainties. So in travel and hospitality, definitely the uncertainty will be about travel. When will travel return? What kind of travelers will return and by when? And how soon travel will return to pre-COVID levels? From this information from Collier's Hotel Insight, data shows the projected recovery for Asia-Pacific international visitors' arrival, where we see that by the second half of this year, short-haul travel is expected to return, followed by business travel and long-haul, and followed by MICE, groups, and tours in the second half of next year. And hopefully by 2023, we can all return to pre-COVID levels. Next, another major problem, supply chain disruptions. This reminds me of the scenario, of this situation that happened at the beginning of the pandemic. One of the leading airline at that point in time contacted us. They told us that China is in a lockdown and they have no way to get supplies out. And the supplies that they have only sufficient for a certain number of these. And they do not know what can they do to actually get supply to mitigate the risk of being in a stock-up situation. Fortunately, at that point in time, we were able to help them. And by having a resilient supply chain, we are also very grateful for the opportunity to be able to serve them on a much bigger capacity over the last 1.5 years, such that today our experience working with them has been elevated to a totally different level than before. Another part about economic issues is about competition. And in this case, we need to understand competition is not just coming from within the industry, but it's also coming from outside. In this case, it could also include, for example, alternative accommodations. As mentioned by Forbes, there is the Airbnb effect, where cheaper room for travelers means less revenue for hotels. Next, let's look at some social issues. Let's focus on one major one, whereby there is a huge shift in the demographic today, given by the fact that millennials, those born between 1980 to 1994, and Generation Z, born between 1995 to 2009, combined, both actually today forms close to half of the world populations, and they are going to increase to even more in the future. So what's the big deal about millennials and Gen Z? Well, something that is a bit different compared to the earlier generation is that millennials and Gen Z value experience over things. They are also more progressive, and they are also more socially responsible. So businesses today need to accept this new reality of life. It is no longer about using the most expensive product or buying the most expensive things that you can have, the flashiest thing to impress. Millennials and Gen Z value that social connections. They value that sense of sustainability. And for them, when they choose something, it is an expression of themselves, for them to communicate their values and who they are. Next, let's look at some environmental issues that each one of us could relate to very well. It is a climate emergency whereby, according to World Bank, by 2050, annual waste generation will increase by 70% to 3.4 billion metric tons. This is definitely a rate that is unsustainable. And as a result of that, we have seen in the last couple of years, I think governments around the world are putting in place regulations and trying to see what can be done to actually mitigate this problem. We are now in the midst of the biggest pandemic of our generation, and none of us know when this pandemic will end. But we know one thing: we can no longer apply our old ways of doing things, the old methods of doing things, in order to emerge from this pandemic. Like what we said is, old ways won't open new doors. Next, let's look at some possible solutions. And in this case, I would like to propose looking at solutions to the various issues that we are facing today from the lens of sustainability. Not just limiting ourselves to environmental, but also look at it from the economic and social angle. Sustainability is most often defined as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. In the area of gas amenities, GUAVA adopts globally scalable, sustainable business model, whereby sustainability is integrated into every areas of our business. And when I meant sustainability is integrated, I'm not just referring to environmental sustainability. A simple question like, is the price that we charge for our product sustainable? There are certain countries whereby affordability is an issue. Can they afford such a product? When we talk about producing certain items, we also ask questions like, how much of waste is going to be generated? Where is the best location to manufacture these so that the distance between the manufacturing site and the client location is minimized? If you are looking at solutions to the various issues that we have today, if you are looking at it from economic issues, I think on the top of our mind, we will definitely look at cost, we will definitely look at revenue. So by choosing solutions with better value, with better flexibility, working with like-minded brands and partners, opting for solutions with more resilient supply chain, that will enable us to better navigate through these economic uncertainties. In terms of social issues, we could look at options that demonstrate sustainability, not just by selection of product, but from items and experience that intuitively communicate sustainability so that the audience, the guests, the passenger can feel a holistic approach to sustainability from the solution and the experience that they receive. And next, to minimize our impact on the environment, we could minimize by opting for solutions that reduce waste, wastage, and carbon emissions. One of them in the area of gas amenities, we offer our clients the option of refillable dispensing system that will be able to reduce waste and wastage by more than 90%. Let's look at some benefits. On the economic side, being sustainable allows businesses the possibility to lower risk, to mitigate risk, to lower costs, and also to maintain business operation, ensuring continuity throughout this difficult period. By looking at sustainability solutions, businesses could better appeal and connect to millennials and Generation Z. Businesses can also enjoy better reputations and deliver better customer experience. In terms of environmental angle, by being more sustainable, each and every one of us can play our part. It doesn't matter whether you are a hotel or a hotel chain. You can do your part to reduce waste, wastage, and carbon emission. Having said all this, we have to bear in mind that the problem that we face today is global. Therefore, global problems require global solutions. It is no longer possible to just look at sustainability in its own, because we need to marry sustainability with scalability, because scalability will enable us to accelerate solution adoption and multiply benefits. And only by working together with all the various partners in our value chain, we will be able to enjoy global benefits that will enable every one of us to tackle the global problems. Let's look at one case study where we help one of our clients to demonstrate sustainability while also improving their profitability. For this particular case, it's a leading hotel with more than 1,000 rooms, and they're very passionate about sustainability. At the beginning of the conversation with them, they shared with us the fact that they would like to appeal to new demographics, mainly the more affluent millennials and Generation Z. They also would like to optimize spend and also minimize waste. Coming from that discussion, we then gather insights to understand a bit more about their target audience, what sort of guests they're trying to serve, what are the customer experience and the brand experience they are trying to communicate. We also deep dive into their operational and financial aspects to understand what are the things that are important to them. Finally, we move on to work with the various stakeholders and partners in our ecosystem to identify relevant options that we can deploy. We shortlist a whole range of brands that could be used in complementary to meet their brand experience. And thereafter, we also work together to formulate solutions for the different guest touch points. As a result of us working together, the client has been able to reduce costs by 20%, reduce waste by 12 tons. We managed to introduce biodegradable products, enrich their brand experience, and also help them to win a sustainability award. So in conclusion, sustainability is the way forward because it is no longer possible to do business as usual. Sustainability not only lowers your costs, but also helps you to address economic, social, and environmental issues. Through sustainability, you can improve business performance. You can connect better to millennials and Gen Z. You can also minimize environmental impact. Thus, all this will lead to profitability. And in today's context, you can definitely afford to be sustainable. We are encouraged to have like-minded partners like Sunhua from Pata, Diana from HSBC, and Sebastien from Accor. They are equally passionate about sustainability. Sustainability is a journey, not a destination. And every journey begins with the first step. So join us and take the next step in making scalable, sustainable impact together. Thank you. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. We'll hear more from Gabriel during the Q&A. So thank you very much. And let's move on to our final presenter for this. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the Vice President of Procurement, Southeast Asia, Japan, and South Korea and Pacific at Accor. He's going to talk about why sustainability is important, how Accor champions sustainability with examples of delivery and actions. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Sebastien Brunel. Sebastien, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be with you. Great presentation from Gabriel and Diana. Thank you. It was really interesting, very eye-opening, and I hope I will give you another vision of sustainability with Accor. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. And I will be able to tell you a little bit more of what do we do within Accor in terms of sustainability.
Looks good.
Seems like you're seeing my screen. Sorry about that. So yes, so maybe just to give you a quick introduction of Accor as a company, because many of you are not that familiar with this company. So Accor today, we've got 5,000 hotels worldwide, more than 5,000 hotels. We've got 750,000 rooms and operating in 100 countries. So it's a big company, very decentralized, operating in 100 countries. And how do we manage sustainability? So I'd like to explain to you, how do we work on that topic? How do we make it a priority for the group? And actually, it's very interesting because when you think about it, I'm in charge of procurement. We've got in the organization director and vice president of sustainability. We've got at COMEX level, executive committee level of the group, a person in charge of sustainability reporting directly to our CEO. So we make this topic as a priority. And when I do this presentation to you, it really shows that if we do rooms, food and beverage, procurement, or anything in the company, anything where anyone in this company is really looking at sustainability as a key program and as a key desire of the group to go further, especially with our industry having an impact on the global planet. So really, Accor is taking that very seriously, and we are very pleased to be today with you to present that topic. Just before we start, I think it's very interesting to, you're all seeing my screen, yes? Yeah. It's very, I've got, so you're seeing some key numbers. So first, every single day, we welcome 680,000 customers in our hotels. So you can imagine having 680,000 people means a lot of impact on the planet in different dimensions. And it's also a complex, we have operating, we are the operator, but it's a complex supply chain in the sense that we are the operator, we have customers, we have employees, we have hotel owners, and we need to combine every stakeholder of our business to drive sustainability in every single moment of a customer coming to our properties. But today, just to give you 4 numbers, we have approximately 30% of world food production which is lost or wasted. So how do we work on that? One out of 5 human beings lives in extreme poverty. 2 million of children are sexually abused each year in the frame of travel and tourism. And the tourism in the large vision is responsible for 8% of the greenhouse gas emission. So obviously our duty is to limit that. And even if this is travel across all type of traveling, airline, hotels, our part of the business, we have a lot of logistics, we have a lot of people coming to our properties, is definitely something we need to work on. But what is very interesting is how does our customers look at us in terms of sustainability? And it's very important to understand that today, from a B2B and a B2C perspective, everyone wants to look at a sustainable company and a sustainable hotel. When we look at our customers, 80% of our customers want us to be fully committed to sustainable development. This is on a B2C business. So when you come to the room, one of your selection criteria to decide which hotels you will go to is a property and a company being able to drive a sustainable program in the hotels. And when it comes to the B2B business, 94%, more than 90% of our customers, B2B business, when they come to Accor to sign a corporate contract, are considering CSR a key element for the definition of the contract. 53% use CSR as a criteria as part of the RFP, and 33% would even disqualify us if we did not have CSR policy within the company, and good performance in CSR. So it really shows that from a B2B, but also from a B2C perspective, everyone is highly interested and highly focused on what does this company do to welcome me and to take care of the planet. This is, on the business. And again, me being part of procurement, when we launch RFP with any suppliers working with our properties, it is the same principle. We are dealing on a B2B business. We are dealing as corporate contract for all of our properties, making sure that our hotels are buying from the right suppliers, from the right source, and from the right selection. And we will disqualify suppliers not having strong CSR policy implemented in the company. So it is true from our customers, B2B and B2C, coming with us, but it's also true with us selecting our suppliers. We also have, obviously, from a hospitality business, very strong legal constraints. So we really want to have a very strong sustainable approach. And of course, managing reputation is highly challenging. We have some very offensive NGOs coming to key players, and ex-cage-free is something we're working on every day to make sure we have ex-cage-free policy within our hotels. What does that mean? And we were talking about profitability. What does that mean for the business? First, today I was talking about the customer. The customer will not select a company like us, not being able to provide sustainable solutions when they come to our rooms. But it's also true for our employees. An employee, we will never be able to keep loyalty of our employees if we do not have sustainable programs in place in our properties. We have 230,000 people working with Accor every day. This is direct employees, direct people working in our hotels. We also have a lot of third-party contractors with laundry company, with external cleaning companies, and all those people will select as well the companies they will supply based on how much they see us respecting the planet, respecting our customers. We were talking about also profitability, sustainability, optimize the procurement, the P&L performance of the hotel, the P&L of our properties. We drive a lot of actions around energy savings and water savings, and this has a direct impact. We were talking a bit earlier about food management and food reduction. Of course, we have many properties already installed with weighting how much waste do we generate on a daily basis, and this has an impact on the way we present our buffet, present our plates, and we understand the customer trend, and we are able to adapt our offer based on the country, based on the customer trends, and based on limitation of waste. And manage reputation and risk. We have in our business, or in any business, but maybe in decentralized business, risk of corruption. We talked about sexual exploitation of children, and waste management. All those elements are several topics we are looking at from a CSR point of view to be able to have strong policies. How do we organize our CSR program within Accor? As I was saying, 5,100 hotels, 330,000 people working in our properties. Obviously, we have many people to train. And just to give you an idea of the structure within the company, we decided to structure our CSR around 6 key pillars. 4 of them are involving stakeholders, and 2 of them are considered as priority field. So when you look from left to right, stakeholder, we have our people. So as I was saying, we employ a lot of people. How do we make sure that within our hiring policy, within our retention policy, within the way we contract our people, we have strong CSR policies. So same with our guests, the guest experience. So we've got 680,000 people visiting our property every day. How do we engage them in our sustainability program? Partners, I was talking about owners. We operate hotels, but we have owners, and those owners have also a direct impact on our CSR requirements, and we can train them, we can support them, we can help them to build buildings which are more CSR, more energy, well, involving more energy savings, or many other topics which generates CSR positive impact for the group. And then engaging the communities. We have external communities directly linked with the operation of a property, and we want to engage all the communities to be sure they are fully aligned with our internal policies. From the mandatory field, two elements. One of them is directly linked to carbon neutral buildings. As I was saying, we have a lot of buildings, and how do we do to move towards carbon neutral buildings? And the other one is around the food and beverage industry. We are growing a lot on the F&B space, and we want to be sure we have sustainable food solutions. Just to give you an idea, how do we deploy our CSR policy within the properties? So for every single hotel we have worldwide, so we've got 5,200 sponsors in each individual property taking care of the CSR deployment within the hotel. So we have a list of 10 actions. It starts from 10 mandatory actions up to 60 actions at the property level. And based on the level of accomplishment, we have a ranking of the property, and they can be at the bronze level, silver, gold, or even platinum level. And we started this classification in 2016, as you can see. And you can see the evolution between 2016 and 2019 with nearly 95% of our properties which were rated from gold and platinum to bronze, when 4 years ago or 4 years before we only had, let's say, 30% of our properties rated and being able to comply with the 10 to 60 CSR requirements we've got in the property. So each hotel has the option to choose some key focus, and then we've got some mandatory one, we've got some optional ones, and the better the hotel can perform on our CSR policy, the better is going to be the ranking of that property. This is also part of the incentive of the general manager of the properties, which also engage every single person in the property to deploy our CSR policies. I will not go through, I talked about the 6 pillars, but just to give you an idea, I will present 2 of them. One is plastic commitment. Plastic commitment, we eliminated by 2019 all the plastic straws, and we have obviously, as an hotel operator, a huge impact on plastic consumption, and we really wanted to work very hard on that. And by end of this year, we will have all, we had to postpone a little bit because of COVID, but we will have, initial target was 2021, all the single-use amenities removed from our property. Again, when you think about 750,000 rooms with a single-use shampoo, a soap, and a shower conditioner, you can imagine the impact we had in the past on CSR, and how much we had to work on to make sure we could transition to single-use amenities or refillable amenities. We just had a presentation from GUAVA, so they understand exactly what we are talking about and how much we can do on that part on plastic reduction. And by 2022, we will have also all the action on plastic reduction. The second piece I was going to mention was a little bit more over food consumption. If you look at on your top right-hand side, hotel business serves every day 200 million of meals with an estimated 50% of waste. And this is obviously something we need to work on, something we started to work on. And by end of last year, we had the target to be at least on maximum 30% food waste, 100 of our restaurants to follow our charter on healthy and sustainable food, which is a very developed charter giving some guidelines to the properties, and more than 1,000 urban vegetable restaurants in our hotels. So we've got properties all over the world having urban vegetable gardens in the property. You can see the result, and it shows the engagement of the Accor to again work on food waste. So that gives a bit of an overview of where we are as a company. What do we do? How is the governance? How is the deployment? What are the key actions? I can tell you, I went through 70 slides. We have more than 100 slides of sustainability action in the property. I just choose 6 or 7 of them, but we have many, many other topics we're working on every single day in procurement, in marketing, with our sustainable sponsor, and all of our operations across the group. So thank you very much. Over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sebastien. Sebastien, you can stay. And I would like to welcome back Diana and Gabriel as well. We do have some questions here. But before we get to that, screening for Diana. All right. Before we get to that, I'll start off with a question for myself. You know, at PADA, sustainability has always been an important issue for our organization. Sustainability, though, is a huge term. It covers a lot. And so, you know, we're trying to focus this year. One of our priorities this year is to actually focus on resiliency. You know, we know the pandemic has sort of highlighted the importance of being resilient and reducing risks and reducing disaster risks. So I just want to ask you, all three of you, this question is resiliency and disaster risk reduction. How much is that incorporated within your sustainability activities? So like GUAVA, do you guys also push that to your clients? Or Sebastien, is that something that Accor looks into? And Diana, is that part of sort of what you guys also provide in financing? So I'll just go with Diana first.
Okay, sure. Thank you. I think when it comes to resiliency and disaster risk reduction, we do incorporate it within our considerations when it comes to dealing with customers. One of our considerations would be a key theme that's coming up, which is transition risk. How well placed are customers dealing with it? Would they need support? We don't take a position of just simply walking away when clients have that risk. I think our ambition is really to partner with them to manage and mitigate that risk. So it does form a big part of HSBC's considerations.
Thank you. Gabriel, you're next on my screen, I see.
Okay, I think as I have shared earlier regarding sustainability, I think for us, sustainability is really about being long-term. Long-term in terms of our offerings, long-term in terms of the way we do our business, long-term in terms of making sure that all the relevant stakeholders, including our team members, we can continue to do what we like doing and what we are proud of doing, regardless of what happened in the environment. So I think having that sustainability integrated in our business includes that resiliency as part of the overall strategy. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Gabriel. Sebastien, do you have any you want to add to this?
No, I think it's the same with Accor. I think it's totally incorporated in our business. We look at it and we look at it and we see really our customers being more and more looking at our business and choosing our business because of our sustainability program. So I would say everything which was addressed by Diana and Gabriel resonates to what is happening with Accor.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to jump right into the questions and answers. I want to be able to answer as many of them as possible. So I want you to jump to this one first. This is a really good one that I think I should ask everyone. So this person here is working from a 120-room hotel. And she's asking, or this person's asking, how do you get everyone from the company on board toward this goal? I guess this goal would be sustainability. And how do you convince people who don't seem to think that sustainability is the way to move forward is doing business? Gabriel's nodding his head. I guess you want to answer that first?
Okay, I can try. I've not worked in a hotel before, per se, but in the last 17 years, I really worked with a lot of hoteliers. And when we are talking about, people who don't seem to think that sustainability is the way to move forward, I think it's more of about to understand a bit more that perspective, which particular area that really create that sort of resistance. And only when you understand what they truly mean, actually more often than not, they are really not at the opposite side. It's just them not looking at it from a slightly different perspective. So I think it's about working together, understanding each other, communicating. I think that can bring about a solution to a lot of situations.
Sebastien, you work at a hotel. How do you get everyone on your team or everyone at the hotel sort of, in line and sort of engaged into sustainability practices?
I think it's also a question of training and communication. We have to train the people. We have to make them understand concretely what is the impact on the planet, what is happening on the plastic, what is happening when we subcontract some services, and what are the risks of subcontracting some services. When we are able to explain clearly how can this impact our business in the short term, and how we become vulnerable in the long term with reputation, with image, with impact on our revenue, our occupancy. It's not a cost, it's a true investment. And by being sustainable, we will generate more revenue in our hotels because people will select us. So it's first to maintain, and it's to differentiate ourselves from the competition. So if we only do the minimum requirements, people will probably come, or will probably go to the one doing more than just the minimum requirements. So I don't think we are facing any issues today of embarking people in our sustainability policy. They believe it, they believe it, but we have, again, I was talking about the governance of Accor. We have at the executive level of the group, a person being responsible for all the CSR of the group. So it is something which is extremely serious.
Right, thank you. I think your answers actually also answered another question that somebody had about tips on how to handle resistance or persuade higher management despite listing the benefits and profitability. So I think their answers actually answered that as well. So I'm going to jump to one of our first questions here. This is actually for Diana. So the question is, how does HSBC set ESG scorecards in performing credit assessment of projects/clients?
Okay, I'll take that. I think the way we look at it is from various factors. So we do assign a sustainability risk rating to each of our clients, basically reflecting, what is the impact of their business on the environment or the local communities, also their ability in how they manage some of these impacts, and the compliance with our internal sort of policies around certain sectors. So we do have a certain sort of acceptable internal thresholds, setting out clear expectations. Those are all published publicly as well, so that everyone is aware. The second aspect is really looking into transition risk. I've mentioned this as really an emerging theme. It's no longer just enough to say, look, what's happening now, but it's also about what's happening in the future. What is the impact and the ability of the customer in dealing with it. For specific projects, we are also signatory to principles such as the Equator Principles, setting out the industry sort of benchmarks. Not every institution obviously subscribes to that, but from our perspective, we would like to make our intentions really clear to say what the best practice should be, and where there's a gap, that's where we would speak to the customer to understand how would we be bridging the gap and what are the timelines for doing so.
Thank you very much. I'm going to jump to the next question here. So this is for Gabriel. Well, I guess thanks for sharing. In your opinion, what is the greatest catalyst which will support proliferation of ESG focus?
Well, I guess we all have to bear in mind that the problem that we face today is very complex, and it's a global problem involving so many countries, so many stakeholders. And I wish there is one catalyst that we could apply and solve all the problems. But unfortunately, to date, there isn't any. I think the key is about working together for different stakeholders to put in their very, very best effort. And I think only by having different parties putting in their very best capabilities and working together, we can actually solve these issues that we are facing today together.
I think we have time for just about 2 more questions. So I'm going to go with this one here. This is a question for both Gabriel and Sebastien. Can you give 2 of the best cost-saving sustainable products that hotels can buy in? And the 2 most challenging products. Are sustainable products more expensive? If so, can you project when in the future these products may indeed be cheaper? That's a lot of questions, but yeah, I guess the first is 2 best cost-saving sustainable products that hotels can buy into.
Okay, I can try to answer this. I think for us, first and foremost, for most of our clients, we are working with them on a global scale, on a regional scale. So it's not about the product, but it's about understanding what the client wishes to achieve. That is first and foremost the most important thing. Having understand what the client wants to achieve, then we could look at various options that could be deployed to meet their needs. So for example, from my presentation I shared, if you're talking about reducing waste, one of the options that we could offer to our client, and a lot of our clients are picking up this solution, is actually refillable dispensing systems. By adopting such solution, hotels can actually reduce waste by more than 90%. But again, this is not for all hotels. There are some hotels that can accept that, there are some that can't. And if you're talking about sustainable products being more expensive, I think for us, with a bit more strategy and thinking and planning and working together with different stakeholders in our value chain, we're actually able to do it in such a way to lower barriers, to help clients to come on board sustainability efforts without too much of resistance on the financial part of it.
Yeah, I would assume, maybe they might be expensive now, but if you look at the long term, right, it's actually better for you in the long term. So it's a short term, it's a high short term investment, but in the long term, it's better. It's a better return on that. So Sebastien, did you want to add to that?
Well,
your experience?
One thing, looking at the big picture of procurement, when you look at our spend in a property, you look at the normal property, 30 to 35% of what we spend is food and beverage. Then you've got 30%, which is service contract, or depending where you are in the world. In Europe, 30% of what you spend is service contract. It could be external laundry and external services. Then you've got the operational product, and you've got a big piece, which is energy, 20%. One category of spend is energy. Energy is a category depending of the regulation per country. But when you go to green energy, you have buying energy and you have the consumption of energy. And if you put the right measure in your property, in energy management, in energy consumption management, you can do massive savings. We use air conditioning all day long. We have elevators. And this is the one category which I think is super tactical, super important, and can generate a lot of savings. And generating a lot of sustainability benefits for our property. The second one, and we are right in the middle of that, and to echo Gabriel, is amenities. Amenities, we know that in the past, every customer wanted single-use amenities. And if you look at the trend of amenities in the hotel business, 2 or 3 years ago, everybody wanted to go back to their house with a small bottle from that hotel, and they don't want anymore. And we know we can at least switch to bulk use amenities and even refillable amenities. And when you look at the cost of amenities tomorrow versus today, you can find an amazing solution with super important cost savings. Then the difficult one to switch are all the emotional products, but again, it comes back to understanding education and looking at the big picture impact. But if we don't do it, we diminish the value of our brand. And I think that's the most important element. A customer going to one of our property, I've got the raffle behind me. A customer going to the raffle, if he sees that the raffle is not able to have a very strong sustainability policy in the hotel, it's not, you know, we will have impact either on pricing, either on occupancy, but people expect that when they walk to not only a luxury property, eco mid-scale property, any property have to have the right measure. Otherwise, they will lose either customers, either they will have to bring the price down. So it's not a cost, it's an investment.
Thank you very much, Sebastien. I think we actually ran out of time. We still have to do some closing. So, you know, we couldn't get to all the questions, but you know, if you guys want to just go in, type any answers to any of the questions that we have, feel free. But once again, thank you, Sebastien, thank you, Gabriel, and thank you, Diana, so much for your insights into how sustainability leads to profitability. So once again, thank you so much. And with that, I'll let you guys leave. As I said, feel free to answer the questions that are still in the Q&A. So
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're coming to the end of our webinar here, but we do have one last presentation, and we want to just talk about PATA sustainability equals profitability initiatives. And with that, we have our strategic partner relations manager. Her name is Phimphika Artthakhan, but I know her as Phon. So Phon, could you please come on, unmute yourself? And all right.
Paul.
Hi, Phon. Well, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Paul. So let me share my screen. So today I would like to share with you one of the PATA projects that we've been working. And yes, we still focus on the sustainability can lead to profitability. So since last year, PATA has been started working together with the European Center for Eco and Agricultural Tourism on a project called Touring. This project is funded by European Union through the Switch Asia program. Touring is a 4-year project, and we have the collaboration with other partners in Thailand as well. That include DASTA, Saksin University, TIATA, and THA. For this project, we aim for Thailand to be recognized as a leading sustainable tourism destination and to support sustainable production and consumption in Thai tourism. The trainings will be provided to tour operators and other suppliers such as hotels, activity providers, and transport companies for them to become more sustainable. The project will also develop and implement standards and guidelines for reduction of food waste and plastic use between tourism and local communities. Last but not least, project partner, including PATA, will reach out to stakeholders to create more awareness of this project to the consumer. And that's it, the brief of the overall of the Touring project. Thank you very much, and please stay tuned for the upcoming activities with this project for the next 3.5 years. Thank you very much, Paul. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Phon. Yes, you know, we do have a lot of Tourlink is one of our projects, but we do have many other projects in the pipeline, which you will be hearing about over the next few months. So with that, thank you very much, Phon. You can turn your camera off, and I'll just do a quick wrap up here. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar. And once again, thank you to our speakers, Diana, Gabriel, and Sebastien. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. If you have any questions about it, feel free to get in contact with us. I just wanted to remind everybody that the deadline for our PATA Gold Awards is coming up. It's on May 28th, 2021. So please do set your submissions. Of course, there is 2 main categories. There's the marketing category, and of course, there's the sustainability category. So if you're any sustainability initiatives that you had in the past year, you can apply now and see if you can win a PATA Gold Award or be grand title winner. So, as I said, if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me. My email is very simple. It's paul@pata.org. As I said, we have many initiatives coming up over the next few months. So please do stay in touch with us. You can just follow us at our website, www.pata.org, to find out, to keep updated and stay updated on all of our activities. So once again, thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you to Sunwar for helping us open it. Thank you to Wong to give us a little update here about TourLink, and of course, HSBC, GUAVA, and Accor. And of course, as always, thank you to our PATA members, chapter members, life members, and all our partners. Without your continued support, none of this would be possible. And last and most importantly, thank you to all of you for joining us for today's webinar. Take care and have a good rest of the day.